This is a nasty situation, and we are setting up for a massive plunge that nobody is looking for and nobody is ready for. Now, I also do have this article right here. I'm going to pop this up in just a second. I want you to read through some of the details in this, and I'm going to point out some of the key details. This is kind of nuts because we're sitting in this extreme valuation within the S&P. In fact, the S&P has only breached 43 times. And this is the third time in which it has breached 40. The other times we've seen massive drawdowns. Now, in fact, let's pop this article up before I get too far ahead of myself here. Let's pop this article up. Feel free to read through the details on this. Let me point out some other details. Now, we're currently sitting over 40 on that valuation. Again, the Shiller PE or CAP ratio. And again, sitting over 40. Now, here's what's super interesting about this. Anytime that the S&P exceeds a Shiller PE ratio of 30, generally the market falls to the degree of bringing that ratio down to a minimum of 27. The markets do not bottom out until that ratio has gone below 27. Well, considering that we're over 40 now, this means that the S&P 500 is setting up for at least a 33% plunge to bring the Shiller PE or CAP ratio under that 27% or that 27 reading, which would actually bring the S&P down to about 4,600 according to these numbers as of right now as we speak. Now, obviously, if the market continues to move higher, then that's going to be even more of a drawdown, but that's where we're sitting right now. Now, historically, if you look at all the data over the last 155 years, and as indicated by this article here, going back to 1871, 155 years, this is a flawless measure, okay? Anytime that the S&P Shiller PE ratio goes over 30, and again, remember, we're over 40, but anytime that it exceeds 30, we see this drawdown of minimum 20% in the S&P, okay? So, not saying that this can't continue on, as in the rally can't continue. It certainly could, but at some point, something's got to give, and this sucker is probably coming down in a pretty substantial way and probably pretty quickly. Now, here's what's interesting. Back in December of 1999, right before the complete bust of the dot-com bubble, so what is that, 26 years ago or so, give or take a little bit. But back in 1999, December, the Shiller PE ratio hit 44.19. Okay, so we're less than 4 points away from that, right? We're less than 4 points away from the ratio of hitting 44.19, which would be an all-time high, okay? Which is very interesting to look at. Now, something else, as I continue to do more research on this and look into this, what's interesting is of the 6 instances in which the S&P has breached a Shiller PE ratio of 30, most of those instances have happened within the last, call it 10 years or so. In fact, like 3 or 4 of them have happened just in the last 6 years. Okay, so it's interesting. Maybe this is the new normal where we are seeing these extreme valuations. Maybe, or just like everything, history and everything else, maybe it will, maybe it's going to average itself out and we're going to see a massive plunge of even more than that. We don't know. Only time will tell on this. But if we look at history as a barometer, and I think we all recognize this, if you follow the markets to any degree, which I follow the markets very closely, I'm looking at the markets all day, every single day. But if you watch the markets, and if you look at history, you typically look at, history typically repeats, right? I know a lot of people say, history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. Okay, fine. Say whatever you want. Whether it repeats itself or whether it rhymes, who really cares? All we know is that in general, when it comes down to the markets, history continues and we see the same things happen historically time and time again when it comes down to the market, right? So whatever happens, we typically see that happen again. And could this be the next instance in which we see the markets plunge because we're so highly valued within the S&P? And again, like I said at the very beginning of the video, Warren Buffett has literally been unloading his positions for years. He has massive positions, right? Hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars invested. It takes a long time to sell those positions off. You can't just push the sell button one day and be out of a position like you and me, retail people with very small accounts. we can just push the sell button and we can be out in a matter of seconds, right? Warren Buffett, he can't just push the sell button, right? He's got to slowly shuffle those shares into the market. Otherwise, he would crash entire stocks if he just pushed the sell button one day and unloaded hundreds of billions of dollars worth of positions. He can't just do that, right? You got to slowly shuffle those